the United States, and the big hand is straight up for a lot of other countries too. Or in Australia, it might be straight down. I don't know.
1 a.m.
And I see a lot of familiar faces, and I see one familiar name, Buzz. It's nice to see your face. Nice to have you join us. We have several New England people here, even if they no longer live in New England. I see several of those. Three, I guess. Now, Chris, I think of you as New England, but you're not. Before we get started in today's program, I mentioned this in the pre-show, but let me mention it again. If you want to get email reminders of our Saturday sessions, instead of having to check caller Facebook, drop me a quick note with your email address to donbeck@donbeck.org, and I can just as easily send out one quick reminder and the link over and over and over again, etc. So with that, we were talking also earlier, Mel was talking, didn't realize he was introducing today's subject, but some of us are interested in the intricacies of choreography, and others realize that the main thing we're trying to do for our dancers is to entertain them. And sometimes you entertain them with the intricacy of your choreography, but more often than not, there's a lot of basic things needed to entertain, and that's the emphasis of what we should be doing. And I'm probably introducing the talk wrong because I'm not the one giving it, but without further ado, oh, we have I'm looking at the wrong sheet here on my other screen. Caller whom I introduced a few weeks ago, and we're going to briefly do it again, calling for about 35 years, originally from New Hampshire, currently living in Tennessee.
All my exes live in Texas.
Got there via one of the physically larger states, and namely Texas. Has done a lot with the square dance industry for a long time, including, we aren't selling Hiltons, we aren't selling anything this time, but he does own Hilton Audio and has kept square dance specific equipment available to us. And he has made several recordings because he believes he's an entertainer. And I do too. He's a great entertainer. Anyway, Don Beck is going to shut up and take it away, Paul Cote. He used to be called Paul Cote, but that was his maiden name.
Yeah, I was Cote until I got out of the range of my father's belt, and at that point I became Cote because I got more beat up by Cote down south of the Mason-Dixon than I did Cote.
Do you spell that C-O-T-E still, or C-O?
Yes, sir.
Because you and I have been pronouncing it C-O-D-Y, and that's sort of a New England accent.
Close enough. Whenever people get confused, I just say think like Wild Bill or Buffalo Bill. Okay, and I don't care how you spell it, just say it. Okay? I think I told you guys last week or a couple of weeks ago, I said the only one that ever bothered me, it wasn't Cody that bothers me, it was not Cote that bothers me. Some people say Cote, that kind of bugs me a little bit, but I don't care about it. The only one that ever bothered me was what they used to call me back in junior high school. I hated that one, and that was Cotex. I didn't like that. But that's junior high school kids for you and how they treat each other. So that's dead serious. So as we get started here today, I apologize in advance. I have nothing to shill. I have nothing to sell. I don't even have a Hilton shirt. I got nothing. I'm sitting in a Fleabag hotel room in Texas, where unfortunately it looks like my requested amicable divorce is not going to be so amicable, and I'm going to end up, unfortunately. I spent 2 days ago with the sheriff's department trying to get some stuff taken care of. So apparently we have different definitions of amicable. But anyway, What I'm saying, the reason I'm saying that is because I'm in this Fleabag hotel room right now. I don't have my computer. I have my iPad. I've got a presentation. I hope it's going to work, but I've never done one on an iPad. So if something goes wrong, I apologize in advance. My secondary apology is I don't have my rated G symbol with the big X through it saying it's not going to be rated G, it's going to be rated Paul. Again, if you've got delicate sensibilities, you know how to turn the audio off, you know how to exit the program right now, please do so. I'm not going to be intentionally rude. I did ask Dan to edit one word out of that entire presentation for me last time, and he did not do it for me. Thanks, Dan. But bottom line is I'm going to be me. So if you like me, great. If you don't like me, that's okay too. If you want to hang around and you don't like me, that's even better. But I'm going to try and figure out how to get PowerPoint up here on the screen right now, and I'm not exactly sure how to do it. So give me just a second, and I'll see what happens. And this is where you would play some, you know, background music or something. And I'm going to turn off my phone because I'm tired of having it interrupt us here. And I found my share screen button. And I want to share screen. And everything on your screen, including notifications, will be recorded, enabled, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Start broadcast. Okay, if you guys could give me a hint of what you're seeing as this is happening.
It says screen broadcast where you're looking at your screen.
Okay, but you're looking at a blurred screen, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and it's trying to broadcast Zoom apparently, which is not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to broadcast one of my other screens.
Right.
Okay, so how do we do that? Screen broadcast. Maybe it's not Zoom. Maybe it's
share screen.
Yeah, that's what I was on. I was on share screen. I just want to get to the right screen. I'm on the wrong screen. I want to get to my PowerPoint screen. Photos, Microsoft SharePoint, Google Box. I apologize, folks. Please take a moment to use the restroom, whatever it takes here for you. So,
yeah, one alternative is you could, if it's a small enough presentation, email it to Dan and he can run the PowerPoint for you while you're talking to it.
That might be even more difficult for me, but I'll try it. Give me a second here. One more second. It's really not as pretty as the last one, but I do have a couple photos I'd like you to see.
That wouldn't be a Macintosh tablet, would it?
It is an iPad.
That would explain it.
Again, more evidence of why there's no video view anywhere, Mel. Let's see. Share content. Come on now. All right, do me a favor and talk to yourself for a second. I'm going to sign out and I'm going to sign back in, and I'm going to see if I can save the presentation because I know I haven't saved it. It's just up and running right now.
Okay.
Give me just 1 second.
Holla.
While you do. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Maybe I got it. Maybe I got it. There could be. All right. Yes, no, maybe.
Not yet.
Maybe.
Haven't tried it on an iPad, Paul, but typically if you push on your computer share screen, you'll see all the different screens that are up.
That's what I did is I hit share screen and it only gives me the screen that I was on. How about this?
Because you don't have, because the iPad doesn't have multi-windows yet unless you have one of the.
Oh, shit. I just closed the damn thing. I hope I didn't lose the whole damn thing.
Can you edit that word out, Dan?
No, I'm okay with shit. I just didn't like bastard. Okay. Got it. All right. So slideshow.
Save it
edit,
first.
Replace the S word with a cut of Mel going apple. Or Mac.
Well, they are synonyms of each other, aren't they?
Cinnamons, like in pie?
Synonyms.
Oh, I was thinking the cinnamon in apple pie, but never mind.
Yeah.
I got everything. It's right here. All right. Let me save the thing and I will send it to Dan. Give me just a second to save it and I will go from there.
Aren't we having fun, guys? Last time
So let's go back to last week for 1 sec. I watched your thing. I think I did it in real time, but I went back to it. Of all the checker cheats, did we not do load the boat?
No, we didn't.
That's the one I was waiting for. I think it's just a Arky star through plus rotate the set 180.
Yeah. Pass through and quarter in.
Exactly.
Why didn't we do that one?
I don't know. The rest were good. I enjoyed it.
Because everybody else knows them. What I enjoyed was the fact that I finally got 2 cameras set up on Zoom.
That worked well.
And I thought that worked well. And interestingly, I recorded it because I wanted to make a YouTube video of just the important parts. And then I looked at what Dan recorded, and his was much better. Dan, yours had the dolls this big and the people this big, and mine had the dolls only about this big. So I tried to download it from YouTube, which I'd done before, and I couldn't remember how to do it. I tried 2 or 3 different ways, and I'm still struggling with that.
I can definitely transfer my version to you. It'll take a little bit of jimmying around, but I can drop it on some website somewhere.
Let me know when it's there.
Don, how did you hook the 2 cameras up?
I used my iPhone for the second camera.
Yeah.
There's a free iPhone app called Epoch. I'm not sure. I can look it up if you want. And the drivers on your Mac are there already. And in Zoom, when you go to share screen, at the top of it in small dimly lit letters are advanced. And then you go down to use 2 cameras.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me for 1 second, please. Dan, what is your email address, please?
It is DANLYKE at Flutterby, FLUTTERBY.com. Like butterfly, but spoonerized.
Okay, go ahead and continue your conversation without me, and I'm going to send you the file right now.
So you do advanced share screen advanced options, and then it's 2 cameras.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the iPhone will just show up there.
Yeah, I did a share screen, and it had the 1 camera I put on for the sharing screen, and the other one was just for me normal. I had done this with the mental image class and without the sharing screen, and it turned out the doll movements was strictly a small square on a matrix of 8 or 9 people.
Yeah.
Fortunately, with 8 or 9 people, it was still big enough to see rather than the 25 we have here, or could have. Yeah. Mickey, are you in the car again?
Yeah, and it should be coming your way.
Mickey's in the car and can't. Oh, there we go.
I am frantically
I'm on the road.
Reload.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Matthew Mills did a presentation on asymmetrical where he used the camera looking down on the dolls and the checkers, and it really, really worked well. I've never been able to set it up, but a lot of people can do that. But what he did was, I think what he set his phone up. He logged in on his phone as the camera and then turned the volume off. So when he was speaking, what he was logged on, it was his phone, which was actually coming up on the main presentation screen.
Well, if you look at Dan's video of last week of mine, it worked out pretty well with the thing. Yeah. Oh, Chris, and to boot, to hold the iPhone up looking down over my desktop was a mop wedged into the bookcase behind me, the boom coming straight out, and then a small.
You went high tech, Don.
Oh yeah.
You better be careful. Paul will be selling that from Hilton next.
Any luck, Dan?
Mop handles.
I am frantically mashing reload on my email and have not seen it come in yet.
And then
here's the thing. Last week I showed up. Last time I showed up a half a minute before the presentation was supposed to start, and we were already talking by now. And this time I showed up 20 minutes in advance, and now we're having this problem.
Last time you didn't start the program until 20 after. You still have 4 minutes.
Shit. I said shit again. Shit. I said shit.
So Chris, I've got this little tripod that the camera is not showing, but it has a way to strap this to my Velcro, strap it to my mop stick, and then it has a quarter 20 thing on the end that I have a gadget that holds iPhones. I couldn't remember how to do it after the first time, so I took pictures of it, so I replicated it the second time. But I thought it worked reasonably well. Buzz, in case some of these people don't have their things on, we have people from the US, Canada, Australia, Germany, and Sweden. And
Canada.
And I guess we don't have any Canadians today, do we?
Yeah, Paul's here.
Oh, can you check for bounce messages and see if it bounced or if it's still coming out? Because I have not seen it yet.
Trying right now.
Thanks.
Did you check your spam?
Nothing in my spam folder, which is surprising, but.
Damn it. I feel like such a flub. This is certainly not entertainment, is it? At least not my definition of entertainment.
In its own
way.
way.
While I'm trying to redo this thing again, choose another app. Choose another app. Choose another app. Okay, good. All right. Okay. From start. Maybe.
Paul's trying to going to talk to us about how to entertain people rather than go through the technical parts of it. So far, he's failed.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm definitely entertaining you while I'm failing at the entertainment of the technical part for sure.
As I've been telling people, we're not here really to learn more about square dancing. Most of us are old pros at it. We're here to socialize, and that's where.
So who else is here? I can't see the screen with list names this time. Who else is here? Anybody I know, or just people here that want to just crucify me?
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, this is Buzz Chapman. I think you know me.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Not Chris, Buzz.
No, I'm here, Paul, like one of your followers. I love your music.
A fellow Houston person is Buzz. He's also a fellow New Englander. There are 19 of us, Paul.
All right, guys, I'm just going to say the hell with it, and I'm just going to read my own slideshow for you, and you'll just have to look at my pretty face. I got nothing else to offer you. I don't know why it's a problem. I'm putting it up as a Dropbox at the same time, but that might take a while because of the connection. But let me just do this and say the heck with it, and have you look at my beautiful me. Okay, so my first screen. Since we're starting 20 minutes late again, and I will try to be a little bit less talkative this time, but at the same time, I got shit to say, so I'm going to say it. My first screen says Paul Cote, and then it has calling, teaching, and then in capital letters, it says entertaining. And the subtitle is The Lost Art of Entertaining. The next slide says The Lost Art of Entertainment. Once upon a time, bullet list, callers were entertainers. Square dancing was about dancing. Crowds filled the halls. And then something happened. And then I have a big slide that has one big word across it, standardization. Next slide. Next slide says, we standardized. And my cutesy little jokey comment was actually an image of the Holy Bible. And then I was going to quickly scroll away from that. And after that, it says the same thing. We standardized, but it says the Carl Lab mainstream program definitions. Okay. We became about the definitions. We became more about the technical aspect of things. Okay. Then the next slide says we forgot about the forest and we focused on a tree. We focused on one small part of what we do. And that's all it became about. We forgot all about the showmanship. Once upon a time, there was a balance. The patter was the meat and potatoes. The singer was the dessert. Then the patter became the meat and the dessert. The singer became just the icing on the cake. And then even the singer wasn't safe. We used to work people out with the patter, teach them things, give them different things to see and experiment with. And then we would, after that, their relaxation, their reward was the singer. But then it became, no, it's not even safe to have the singer as a reward anymore. No, we've got to challenge them mentally for the singer too. So it became all about the meat and potatoes, and there was no more dessert. Why? Okay. We became all about the meat and potatoes. And this happened across the world. Okay. It happened hugely, and it's still happening hugely in Europe. Okay. They've taken the Carl Lab definitions and they've treated them word by word by word, that you've got to be able to know those definitions cold and in every single fashion. And yes, I know there are some entertainers in Europe, but primarily it's all about that definition. That's what it's become all about. Okay, all about the meat and potatoes. But after a little while, we weren't satisfied with mom's meat and potatoes. We wanted to have restaurant quality meat and potatoes. Then we wanted to have gourmet quality meat and potatoes. Then we wanted to have meat and potatoes prepared by a private chef. But what happened to the icing on the cake? The icing on the cake is all but forgotten. It's gone. It's not there anymore. We don't give them anything except the meat and potatoes. Now, you guys all know, and ladies all know, that I'm a big fatso. Okay, I've tried every diet in the world, and the only one that ever worked for me is the one I'm doing right now that nobody approves of, my vaping. Okay, but prior to that, I did Atkins. Okay, along with every other diet. Okay, but it was one of those things. You can have all the big fat T-bone steaks that you could ever desire and still lose weight, and it worked. It really did. But it was amazing as I was feasting on that beautiful medium rare T-bone steak, how desperately bad I missed the baked potato to go with it. You never realize how badly you wanted to have these things too. Am I still on?
Yeah, you're still
Yes.
Okay, because I'm looking at Dawn's screen here, and Dawn has not moved in the past 30 seconds. So I figured I was just preaching to myself again.
I'm here.
All right. So we've forgotten about the dessert. We've forgotten about the things that made things special. Okay. Yes, we've become great choreographic presenters, but we're not entertainers at all. Again, I keep on going back to my big screen, beautiful screen that says, why? Just why? We became all about the definitions. And again, I have the picture of the Carl Lab mainstream program definitions. We became, Carl Lab had a lot of fantastic positive things. They standardized the activities so it can be done around the world. All of those kind of things are fantastic things about it. But as far as I know, and I know that Clark can can confirm this or give me a better idea. But from my understanding, as long as I've been in the activity, they have been writing and rewriting and making the definitions more technical. And then once the definitions were made more technical, they were then brought down to a standard definition because the too technical definition was too technical. So now they have to have standard version. They've been doing this for 25 years, as far as I know. Is that an approximately correct number, Clark?
I think a little longer.
In around 2000, the definitions committee undertook rewriting the mainstream definitions because they had been written in the late 70s, and there were lots of questions that kept coming up on the internet as chat groups and mailing lists started, and the definitions as they were originally written by Color Lab didn't answer certain questions. So that's when the rewrite happened. But the rewrite took forever to do for a variety of reasons.
Okay. And that bottom line is flat out politics. That's flat out politics and bureaucracy that made this thing take forever. And the fact is, they're still working on it now. They're still doing things on it. I mean, yes, there's a program here that's been established by a certain date, but they're still futzing around with it. How many times are we going to hear, is it okay to say center zoom when you really want to center zoom, but you don't want just the centers to zoom? Come on, knock it off, folks. Enough. Grow up. Sing a song. Okay? Shame on me. Ladies in the men's sachet, or roll away with a half sachet because it flows nice off the tongue. Do we really mean to roll away and then a half sachet in addition to that? No, we don't. Come on, knock it off, folks. Stop being so damn technical about stuff and entertain people. The next screen says we were overrun by nerds. And I have pictures. I have two pictures of nerds. I have pictures from the two guys from Revenge of the Nerds. And I have pictures of the people from the Big Bang Theory. Okay. Within the bureaucracy of any organization, the nerds are the ones who step up. It gives them a chance to be a big fish in a little pond. And these people are the ones who spend a lot of time working on things like definitions. Okay. You didn't find a bunch of entertainers in there working on these definitions and making this the priority of Color Lab for the past umpteen years. You found the people who do the technical work, and that's what it became all about. And that became the focus. Okay. I would love to be able to go back and find out how many hours and hours and hours and hours were spent on defining and redefining and reestablishing these lists to become the semi-permanent document that we have now. And compare that to how many hours were spent on promotion. Compare that to how many hours were spent on presentation. Just compare that to how many hours were presented on entertaining and how to become a better entertainer. Because I guarantee it's 10 to 1, guaranteed at least. Okay, and I'm just pulling that number out of my butt, so I could be completely wrong, but I've attended several Color Labs, and I look at those panels, and the disparity is huge. So my question is, what happened to the showmen? Where'd they go? And the next screen I have two pictures. One picture of a man who I'm not familiar with, and I don't know if Larry's in here today or not, but I know that Larry got his wardrobe from Cal Golden. Cal Golden was the showman of showmen. He was a spectacle on the stage. He was our Elvis. And a few weeks ago, I mentioned, in my estimation, the last person who truly made it as a national and international caller, who was a showman. We've already lost him, and that was Tim Mariner. Okay. There are other callers that were excellent entertainers and still are very good entertainers, but they were forced, basically, to become much more about the technical and the definitions in order to get booked on the major festivals. If you want to call at a major festival, you've got to be able to call advance. You've got to be able to call challenge. Okay. You've got to be able to really challenge the dancers mentally. And that's the only way you can get hired on a festival. How many of you remember Dick Ledger? Dick Ledger never called mainstream. He called basic. And he called one of the most entertaining dances you've ever been to. He didn't bow to the pressure of having to change. Okay. But you know something? Dick Ledger had full halls of dancers. I said to you 2 weeks ago, we've lost 95% of our dance population in the past 40 years. 95%. What's changed in those last 40 years? The showmen are gone. The spectacle is gone. Okay. If you had Elvis Presley up on the stage working out accounting statements on a calculator, you wouldn't have the same thing with the girls all yelling and screaming and having to see Elvis. Okay. Elvis was a showman. Cal Golden was a showman. Tim Mariner was a showman. And they all had big crowds, and we do not. So maybe something they're focusing on is wrong. Those callers that were showmen are gone and forgotten. 95% of our dancers are gone and forgotten. Again, why? Again, I said we standardized. Again, I have the picture of the Bible and I have the picture of the Carl Lab mainstream definitions. You're going to be pretty happy that this portion of my presentation is almost over. It's not going to be as long-winded as last time, but I'm not done yet. So trust me, you're still in for an earful. There is a guideline that is required to be followed. Okay, so maybe it's not a guideline, it's a requirement. Okay, to get a scholarship from Collar Lab and from any other organizations, the school that you are applying to has to follow a specific guideline of 40 hours of teaching by the staff. And if they don't follow that 40-hour guideline, then you can't get a scholarship for that school. You have to follow the Carl Lab recommended teaching guideline for a school. On the Carl Lab website, there's the Collar Training Curriculum. And it breaks up the curriculum into 3 different categories. The first, the primary, is the essential topics. And these are the topics that must be covered first, the absolute priority. Number 1, mechanics of choreography. Number 2, methods of choreographic management. Number 3, music. Number 4, teaching. Number 5, programming. Number 6, smooth dancing and body flow. Number 7, voice delivery. Number 8, timing. Number 9, leadership. Number 10, ethics. These are the essential topics at a college school that you can get a scholarship for. These are the top 10. Let's go down to the next section, which they call important topics. Not essential, but important. The business side of calling, singing call techniques, sound public address equipment, the caller's partner, dancer success. Ooh, there's a typo in there, call sociability, square dance party, history, heritage and tradition, self-improvement techniques. After you've been through the essential topics and the important topics, you then go down to the desirable topics. The first desirable topic is rounds contras, and mixers required as a session at a square dance callers school. Anybody have a problem with that? Rounds, contras, and mixers at a square dance callers school. Not a round school, not a contra school, not a mixer school, a square dance callers school. After rounds, contras, and mixers, the next subject in the desirable topics, not in the essential topics, not in the important topics, down below rounds, contras, and mixers in the desirable topics is showmanship. There are only 2 categories left after that. Duties of an MC and promotion/communications. Does anybody see a problem with this?
Yeah.
Let me ask you again. Does anybody miss 95% of your dancers? I do.
Well, I think
showmanship is the 3rd from the bottom on the list of all the parts of the program required to qualify for a scholarship from Color Lab at a color school. This is what's wrong with the activity right now. We don't have any showmen anymore. We've killed them off. The closest thing we have to a showman right now is Hunter Keller. Hunter Keller acts the part. He puts on the whole cowboy hat. He puts on the whole to-do. He gets up there and he puts on a nice show. He does entertainment. He does imitations. He does all kinds of things. And even Hunter has been pressured because he's not technical enough. He doesn't give enough of a choreographic challenge. He doesn't give enough of the higher level advanced and challenge stuff. Well, folks, we have a pyramid. The first part of that pyramid is our base, and we have to figure out a way to get the base. And that's what I worked on with you 2 weeks ago, and I was shilling my stuff left and right. By the way, it's on sale through Labor Day. We've extended the sale just a little bit longer. So through Labor Day, we will have it available at HiltonAudio.com. Sorry, Don. I had to stick that one thing in there. Okay. Anyway, but the point is those brochures, those hangers, that kind of crap, whatever your own promotional tools will help you get the people through the door. Okay, you have to focus on the base of the people. And here's the thing. You are not going to attract people by handing out a flyer or a brochure that discusses all the technical aspects of what you do as a caller. Mm-hmm. Okay, on your relay they do see, okay, everybody's going to trade by the right hand. The center 2 are going to cast 3/4 by the left. The person on the end is going to walk up to the end. You're going to form a wave of 6. And the wave of 6, you're going to all trade right. You're all going to trade left. Then you're going to push person up. Okay, that's not going to sell a dance, folks. That's not going to sell it to a non-dancer who knows nothing about our activity. What's going to sell it to them is a fun show. It's show, it's entertainment. That's what brings them through the door. Well, the dancers want more challenge. Bullshit. You don't have to edit that, Dan. That's fine. Bullshit. Okay? 1 in 20 dancers ever goes beyond plus. 1 in 20. So why on God's green earth do dancers have to know the proper way to do a recycle? Because it really doesn't come into play until you get to the advanced level where you have to go back and reteach the people to do the recycle by the definition. Okay, and people that teach at the higher level get upset. They have to reteach the 1 in 20 dancers that will ever see a face-to-face recycle. To be completely honest, the centers do a U-turn back and do a wheel and deal is perfectly appropriate for 95% of the dancers. They'll never see a face-to-face recycle. So why the heck do we have to push that crap down their throat? Okay, it's the ends cross-fold while the centers fold, follow, and peel. Yeah, okay, that's a lot of stuff for Joe Average dancer who's just coming in to have a good time. He's just coming in to have somebody put on a presentation, show him, put on a show, entertain him. We've forgotten about the way we got people through the door in the first place. It was a barn, it was a band with people who couldn't play for crap, and it was a guy up there with a cowboy hat out on the bottom of the stage, okay? And he got up there and he gave them some patterns to dance. By the way, the same old patterns over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And people kept coming back for more and more and more and more. And not because they wanted to see a triple inverted relay the juicy with a backwards flip. They came because they wanted to be entertained. They wanted a show. And we don't do that anymore. And we have a problem because of that. Now, I proposed a couple different schools over the years. Matter of fact, I actually started them. But you also, if you were here a couple of weeks ago, know that I have been battling depression for 5 decades. Okay. And so I have dropped the ball a couple times. A couple of years back, 3 or 4 years back, I proposed a caller school, a singing caller school, all about singing calls. And I invited Wade Driver to join me with that, join me in that project. And we ran a very successful caller school all about singing calls. And it was very, very well received. Unfortunately, my depression got the better of me, and different combinations of things happened that you don't need to know the details about. But bottom line is I dropped out of it. And Wade has continued to do the school by himself to this day. He's still doing it well. Then I proposed, hey, that was such a successful thing, and I was feeling a little bit up on one of my upper parts of my depression, where I wasn't down in the valleys. And I proposed, hey, let's take this big time. Let's go to Nashville. Let's do a caller school at the Hilltop Studio, where Royal Records and Sting Records and many other labels have done their music with professional Nashville pickers for the past 40 years. And that program, again, I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to go better. I got the 2 best names in the business. I got Tony and Ted. Okay. Well, that program went off fantastically. Huge. I mean, big money. People paid big money for that school. Okay. And it was very successful. And they all got to do a recording. But the one thing missing from that program was me. Because once again, my depression kicked in. And after I had provided the format and gave them the idea, I dropped the ball and they kept it running. So they have a very successful TOTL caller school that features singing calls. And then once again, here I am bitching about it on Zoom. So these things can work. But every other caller school, other than those 2 that I just mentioned to you, follow that same standardized format. Okay. And they're going to follow it, and they're going to have to do that if they want to have people get scholarships to the school, because why the heck would a person actually pay for a caller school when they get it for free? I mean, it's only your education. It's only what's going to help you develop and become a better caller. Well, you know, why would you want to actually pay for that? You need to get a scholarship or you're not going to go to it. But all of the caller schools, every single caller school out there has one major failure to it. They want you to come back. And they don't really care if you can call or not. And this is what's causing us to have a very low quality of leader in the activity. Because whether you go to the GSI school or any of Ken's schools or Mike Sikorsky schools or whoever other schools out there, they're going to take you because they're going to take your money. Okay. And listen, there's nothing wrong with earning a paycheck in the activity. There's nothing wrong with that at all. GSI gives the schools for free, okay? But the other people are all doing it to make a profit and earn a living. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, but the problem is when you start bringing people back year after year after year after year that have shown you no development whatsoever, have shown no initiative to actually go out and do the things that they've learned at the school, have shown nothing to you except a fistful of money saying, I want to come back to the school. And there's got to be a way to get around that. There's got to be a way to say, you know, just like we recognize that there are certain people that will never square dance and we hand them a gift certificate to go bowling, some of these people attending these schools need to be given a gift certificate to go bowling. Well, what's the problem with that? The problem is you're not going to make money. Okay, I could start a college school tomorrow. Okay, and the moment that I have Don Beck come to the school, I'm using Don because he's a friend and I can't see anybody else on the screen that's my friend. Okay, but the moment that I have Don come to the school and I tell him, Don, your calling sucks. Don's not coming back. Okay? Don's not going to listen to the next part of it where I say, hey, Don, your calling sucks. This is what you need to work on to get better. He's not going to listen to that part. As soon as he hears his calling sucks, he's, number one, going to never come back. He's probably going to leave on the spot. And number three, he's probably going to badmouth me all over the internet and the activity. Okay, which is why I probably shouldn't run a school. But if Chris Stacy wanted to come to a school that I ran, or somebody else, or Mel, or again, I'm just trying to pick names off topic. Anyway, I can't see the list of names here anymore. But if these people wanted to come to a school and actually be told the truth, they're not going to want to come back anytime soon unless they're ready to be faced with reality. That, hey, I'm just not that good, and I need to either work my ass off and get better, or I need to quit. And some of us need to quit. So far we've been talking about specifically the entertainment and the reasons why we've lost the entertainment. But what the question is what can we do about it? Well, the answer to that is we need to start focusing on entertaining again. Okay, people become square dance callers right now for pretty much one reason. Okay, the people who become square dance callers are the engineers, they're the technicians, they like the nuts and bolts of calling. Very few people get into it with a musical background. But that's where we need to find people. We need to find people with a musical background because we are selling dancing, not choreographically moving. Okay, we've got to get back to that. We've got to figure out a way to get the musicality back into square dancing. And no, that doesn't mean you have to be, Pavarotti out there. Doesn't mean that. But it does mean you have to start to make some musical choices that are appropriate to your voice. You know, maybe all you can sing is Take Me Out to the Ball Game, but make it the best damn Take Me Out to the Ball Game you could ever sing. Okay? Don't get up there and sing a love song and sound like you're doing a Russian march. Okay? Don't go and try and do. I mean, if you don't have the golden gift of tonsils, then there are plenty of pieces of music out there that you can do. He's got the whole world in his hands. How tough is that? Take Me Out to the Ball Game. How tough is that? Okay, find things that you can do. Even those of you who swear I'm never going to sing. Okay, there's that song that was written by Tex Squares about all the elements of the periodic table. Do that, whatever, but do something about entertaining. And if Dawn gives me an opportunity sometime down the road, because I know you're already getting sick of me at this point, I'd like to talk more about the specifics about entertaining, but I thought that this part was more important to get started with, and we can get onto that if I ever get invited back. So I guess what I'd like to say here, just to wrap things up, is look at the numbers, folks. Look at the fact that we have lost 95% of our population and what we have been emphasizing during that 95% downturn. Maybe it's time to stop what we're doing and start thinking about what was different before we started losing the numbers. And yes, there's all the technical things, there's the COVID and the this and the that and the sociability, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But realistically, the biggest part of the problem is the product that we're selling. So think about this a little bit. And I guess at this point, I just, once again, put my head on the chopping block and have you go at it. And I just one more time, just because I didn't get enough in there, shit.
Let's
Daryl had his hand up earlier.
Before, well, his hand's not up now. I want to usually, hi Daryl, we'll let, just in a minute. Usually I wait till the end of the hour to do this, but I'm going to do it now, and then we can divide our thank yous, our presentation to our discussion with our thank yous. So thank you guys for coming. I think we've got 20 people, which is a little on the upside, which is really cool. And thank you guys for coming. Remember, if you're interested in getting an email reminder of what's coming, drop me an email. I looked at email and some are here already. My apologies for signing off for a minute. I was trying to quit a spreadsheet on one thing and quit Zoom instead on the other. Let's have a big hand for Paul Cote, who has some good things that we need to hear, despite his self-deprecation here and there. Picking on you, Paul. Since you picked on me, we can do that. Yeah. I want to note, well, just a couple of things. You said, let's look at the numbers. That means we should go into the mathematics of this, but you really don't want to. You want to go into the entertainment of it.
Sing the numbers.
But I understand what you meant by that. I want to throw in a couple of comments, and we'll let Daryl throw his, but we have had at least, well, first of all, if you're interested in the thoughts, etc., the philosophies of the definitions, Clark did a great presentation way back when for us, and the reason I had Excel open was to look for a link for the video of that, and I don't seem to have one. I've got links to most of the videos, but maybe we can find that and put it up there for those that want it. We have done 3 sessions presented by different people on showmanship. And I think, Paul, I would love to have you come back and talk about it, specifics of showmanship and what it is, specifics on how to entertain and what to stay away from and avoid and all that other stuff. All 3 of our presentations were different, and that's kind of an interesting thing. The last thing I wanted to mention was that we've talked on this series several times, especially near the beginning. As you were saying, the accredited caller schools try to tell you about this, 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 and this. Because there's so many things, they typically give you half a minute about each. It's interesting, the list you read to us sort of sounded upside down.
Amen.
The bottom thing was what you talked about last time. The next to the bottom is what you're talking about this time. We've talked about the fire hose effect of getting so many things. You talked about specific schools now, about different singing call schools. I did want to point out that there are a few other schools out there that are aimed at specific things and let you know they're strictly for this. I think Ken Ritucci and some others were planning, I don't know if they followed through, on a school on how to teach square dancing.
Yeah, still doing it.
An important part. Here's my old self-promotion, but I've been doing online courses on teaching, giving away the secrets of mental image calling for those that want to start out using it, and or for those that are experienced and want to know the tricks that make it possible to follow only one caller. So
no shilling allowed on this presentation.
But it's after the hour.
Okay.
Unless you add Hilton.com at the end of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
So again, anything at donbeck.org will give you information on the next metal image school that's starting up.
And if you act right now.
Yeah, on sale at the remarkably low price of covering expenses of Zoom, and that's about it. And I thought I had a third thing to say, but aren't you lucky that I can't remember what it is? Daryl.
Yes.
Again and talk to us.
Okay. First, right up front, Paul, fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Very nice presentation. I agree with practically everything that you said. If you'll excuse me, things. And let me mention just a couple of them, and I'm sure some of the others may come up later. I'm sorry to say. You're absolutely right. The whole thing has become more about the choreography than anything else. Absolutely. Extended applications. And I've been around long enough in this. Don and I both have been in Collar Lab since, what, year 2? Out of how many now? It's 45, 46, 47 years, something like that. Yes, I was there. Don was there when we put all these lists together and the collar training manual. I was involved in that. Do I think that what we did was good? Not particularly. No, I'll get rid of the I. I like what you said about the singing calls, about all of that. All right. Now, here's a couple of things that you didn't really dwell on or make mention of. There is a world of difference between your local club caller and your road caller. I've been both. The road caller was always putting on a show. I didn't hit the road without having a program, a show. Unfortunately, the local club caller can't do the same show at every dance. It has to change. That takes work. I'll give you that. Yeah, it's tougher. It really is when it comes to entertaining. They have to be more than just an entertainer. They have to be a club leader. They have to be a teacher. All of these other things that go with just keeping a local club alive. Are they great singers? Probably not. Are they great entertainers? Some may be, but most of them probably not. But can we do without those local clubs and those local callers training the dancers? We cannot. So, there's got to be a distinction between the two of those. I decided a long time ago that I cannot judge who can be a caller and who cannot, because a very close friend of mine, a lady, back when we didn't have that many lady callers, wanted to be a caller. I heard her sing, and I said to her, Dottie, which was her name, she's passed away now. I said, nobody's going to want to hear you. You can't carry a tune in a bucket. She said, I know, I just kind of enjoy trying. She proved me wrong. She wound up having a club that was dancing 12 to 14 squares every Monday afternoon. She found her place in the activity. She became a caller by going to a senior center, starting a senior citizens club, and just entertaining the heck out of those people without being able to do the singing and all of the fancy stuff, or the fancy choreography for that matter. So anybody, they want to work hard enough, there's a place for them as a square dance caller. That's my opinion, which I'm entitled to as well. As far as choreography, this whole darn thing has become about choreography. Part of the reason is not just the dancers that we're keeping these days, but the callers that we're keeping these days like the way it is. They like it like this. This
I
what
don't.
Yeah, we need to get the ones that are just in it to be with the people, and they're never going to be the free callers.
Just a moment.
Oops.
Just a moment. Very good.
Sorry, Paul, didn't mean to make you mad. Okay, but you see what I'm saying? And one last thing. As far as these definitions and everything, I said it before this thing started, it's committee make work. It's committee make work. Every once in a while, you have to sit down with these lists and go through everything. Well, anything that's popped into somebody's mind, and we've got some pretty impressive minds out there, they decide to start bantering back and forth about how many different ways you can do a do-sa-do. And that's what happens. The time is being spent, like Paul said, on stuff like that, rather than on stuff that can promote the activity, can keep the callers, the local callers, active, putting dancers on the floor. I'll tell you, I've seen it start to finish, gang. And it's almost at the finish now. So with that, I will shut up. I'm done with my tirade. Sorry about that.
Sorry about stepping out there. I'm in this Fleabag hotel, and they're telling me I'm supposed to check out, but I got a late checkout, so I had to tell what was going on. The thing is, again, Daryl, you're absolutely correct with all this stuff. Okay, but the one thing that, again, I'll go back to you and disagree just a little bit is callers will spend hours and hours and hours and write pages and pages and pages of choreography. And then what they'll do is they'll take a singing call that they used to just take a singing call, throw it on the record, throw the record on the table, or press it on the computer button. One that they have never sung before. They say, hey, let's see what this works like. Okay. If I haven't done a singing call 50 times, you'll never see me present that singing call. If I haven't practiced it in private 50 times, at least, you will never see me do a singing call. Okay, and the top callers in the world say, hey, here's a new tune. Let's try this one out. Let's see if you can do it. Let's see if I can do it. And that's disgusting. Okay, there is no work in the entertainment aspect of what we do. The only thing we do is go through our book of written choreography and say, here's the next 25 pages of crap I wrote.
In defense of Caller Lab, it was intended to do well. Its intentions were right.
It did many things well.
The consequences of some of the actions were totally non-anticipated.
Right.
And interesting to talk about.
So it's time to change them.
Well, they have been trying over and over. That's where SSD came from. Who knows? Chris, you've had your hand up for quite a while. It's probably pretty tired up there. Pull it down.
Well, so first of all, well, usually what I start out this sentence is by saying, there's nobody here more technical than me. Although in this case, there's one person. But but as you know, choreography, technical, loving guy that I am, all of the stuff about entertainment and the need to you know, connect the people with the music and you know, these very basic things, those really are the, you know, the core of what's going on here now. From over the years, well, starting when I first started learning to call, I made a habit of talking to the older guys who had started dancing maybe in the 50s or in the 60s, and sort of quizzing them about, you know, what was it like and how did you learn and to dance and to call and stuff. And quite a few of them who were not technical callers at all, who were good time callers, they talked about, oh, I was a teen and, you know, we wanted to go on dates. And so, and square dancing was a socially visible and acceptable thing at the time. And they would talk about going to different dances and chasing girls. But one of the things that they did mention was how much fun it was choreographically. Now, when they would come in to these dances, you go in there on the first day knowing nothing, and they'd put you through, essentially a course, but it's, dancing while you're learning. It's not just straight class, right? I mean, it's the thing that we all, hopefully everybody here understands about teaching a class, right? You try to make it as much like a dance as you can, or it's a dance and you try to teach as much as you need to. But they did enjoy that part, and they would, and then they didn't learn a whole lot of calls, right? You learn like a dozen calls or something, and you have a good time dancing, but you keep going back week after week, and then there's more classes, and you can take those and learn a few more calls and whatever. So this is all before Caller Lab. And so learning the calls was part of the fun. And it is, if you don't like learning things, you're never going to do a square through, right? I mean, the thing that distinguishes us from other kinds of dancing is that choreography. So that's definitely a part of it. But the emphasis on how you learn that stuff and when and how much and the whole structure of what we do is wrong, right? It's just that's not the way. If you're me, then you want to have a pyramid with a bunch of C4 dancers up at the top here that can all meet in a convention once a year from everybody in the entire world can show up basically, and you'll all fit in the hall, okay? Or close to that. But you're never going to have those people, and if you're a technical caller, you're never going to get to have that fun, and you're not going to have technical dancers who are enjoying it unless you have obviously a huge base. And that's really where we need to focus. And I'm all for standardizing the definitions and stuff, which is really hard. That's how it's not the standardization, I don't think, that killed it, but it's sort of the way we go about, like, so the basic list, right, has all these calls on it with all these pretty good definitions that have been worked out. You don't need to, well, I'll give you an example right now. We're debating on the base, is it basic or mainstream, I forget, list, about single circle to a wave, right? Everybody likes single circle to a wave, and you have circle left and the circle family, and the single circle, that's on the lowest list we have, and right now people are hammering out the definition for that because we're just cleaning it up because it's kind of a mess. It doesn't have a standard way to say it, and so we're working on that problem. But one of the first things that's coming up now is, well, are we going to allow them to single circle? And it's not necessarily to a wave, by the way. But can we single circle a quarter, 3/4? What if we want to go the other way? Do we call that reverse or whatever? And those are questions that need to be answered, and we need to have an answer. But so that, that's going to get written down, and probably that'll be a standard thing. Now, does that mean that when somebody comes in and we're teaching them circle left, or we get to the point where we want to do single circles for something, or even single circle and step to a wave, or whatever you want to do there, when you get to that point in the choreography and you think that's a fun thing to do, and it could be, and you think that, well, I need that now, let's do that. When you get there, do they need to know about quarter, 3/4, reverse, whatever? Well, not really. Not at first. The whole way that people are introduced to applications beyond the simplest repetitive thing, the really basic version of the call, that's I think that nowadays we kind of conceive of that wrong, and we try to cram too much into. They don't need to know that, right? They can encounter that later. It's not a big deal. I wouldn't spend time in class really going over that. But if I were doing it the Caller Lab way, the way we're supposed to, I'd be like, oh, now I'm going to teach you this, and let me show you all this versions of it. And I'm picking like the simplest call in the world here to give this example. I don't think that there used to be a different flow and a different order and amount of crap that we teach them, it used to go differently, and it didn't go by the Collar Lab levels. I mean, I hate to pick on Collar Lab because, you know, we all know Collar Lab is trying to do positive things, but one of the first observations I made back in the 80s when I was learning to call was the graph of, you know, square dance popularity, and, you know, shortly after the, you know, 1974 or 2 or whatever it was, whoop, Collar Lab standardization up, and here we are. And you know, it's not, I don't want to blame Collar Lab, but I don't think that we were. Now I wasn't involved in any of those decisions, so I'll use the we that I'm now part of the world here, part of the activity. We weren't astute enough at figuring out, you know, where the level system, program system, whatever the hell you want to call it, was going to lead to, and how it didn't really reflect the experience that people had when the activity was burgeoning and people liked to join it, and we had a sort of a sustainable system. We've never had a sustainable system, really. I mean, we had a big trend up, right, from the 50s on up until, you know, well, I mean, the thing was pretty much dead by the 90s, but, you know, it was going up into the 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the well, by the 80s, it was getting a little flaky. But and if you look at the whole thing, right, so how long has it been since we've been doing this? Not hardly even more than one generation of humans. So that's, I'd count, if you say sustainable activity, oh, we got it to go for one generation, that's the kind of a failure altogether. But we were on an upward trend for a while, and the thing that I think caused the spiral down was, you know, like people are saying, the emphasis on choreography. I love the choreography, and dancers like choreography. It's sort of a matter of how much we feed it to them, and how.
Chris, we have some other hands up. Let's
let me just throw one thing in here first before you go to the next hand. Just one real quick thing on Chris. Let me ask you one question. In the Burleson's Encyclopedia, how many dancing calls are in there?
Oh, I don't know. You know, a zillion.
Nope.
Oh, you mean, what do you mean by dancing calls?
How many dancing calls are in the Burleson's Encyclopedia?
What do you mean, calls, or what is a dancing call?
Between 4,000 and 5,000.
Okay, between 4,000 and 5,000.
Yeah, zillion.
Respectfully, I disagree.
You're talking calls that are danceable that people actually use?
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. I'll give you the answer right now because you're all going to be wrong. Okay. One dancing call in Burleson's. Swing. It is the only dancing call we have in square dancing. Swing. Every other call is a movement of your feet and you follow a progression. But the only call in the entire book is swing. That's the only call that we actually dance in square dancing.
I think many international folk dancers would disagree with you, but
we're not folk dancers. We're square dancers.
Anyway,
most folk dances are circle left.
Mel has had his electronic hand up for a while. So is Daryl. You're next, and a real hand is Buzz Chapman has his hand up. So it'll be Mel, Daryl, and Buzz. I want to. There, I got a hand up. A while back we had Larry Marquez give us a talk on what it was like. He called for a long time, then laid off for a while and came back. And to see the contrast. And I don't know how many of you know Buzz, but Buzz was a very active and successful caller in the New England area where I was. Buzz, I don't think I ever got to dance to you, but I always envied seeing your name here and there. And then he dropped out for a long time and he came back. And I believe his dropping out was pre-Collar Lab. And I want to hear what you're going to have to say after Mel and Daryl, but specifically to see the contrast between pre-Collar Lab and post-Collar Lab now that you're back into the activity might be kind of interesting too. But Mel, you just pulled your hand down, but go for it.
Yeah.
waiting a long
No,
time.
I just wanted to say, Paul, I know you and I don't agree on everything, but I agree wholeheartedly with what you were saying today. Our focus has become choreo-technical. In addition to the focus on choreography for callers, the other downside was the status of being called a caller rather than actually to be a caller has led to a lot of the downside. There's so many people that have joined the activity to be a caller right out of learning how to dance and not really enjoying it because they never got the enjoyment aspect. They got the technical aspect saying, I can do that. I want to be a caller. I want that name and status of being a caller. And as you said, they don't put the effort into it. Getting the dancers in the door, that promotion, that communication, this whole activity is about communication. And the way we do that is to get them in the door. Once they're in there, we have to keep them. And the way to keep them is to entertain them. All of those things that we do with choreography, the teaching, the programming, the delivery, all of that is part of that communication, is part of that entertainment. But the only thing that's going to keep them in the door is to have a shared experience that they enjoy. I hate Alice Cooper music, but I went to an Alice Cooper concert and I just thoroughly loved it because it was entertaining. And I cannot stand the man's music, but it was that event, it was that experience that got me. And that's what I like to try and give every time I call a dance, is that experience that you want to come back for more. I don't always succeed, but I try and succeed more than I fail. I agree with you about being pressed to go forward. I was asked why I don't call A2 or challenge. And quite frankly, it's because I have no interest in it. I only started calling A1 because I was calling 5-6 nights a week throughout the 80s and 90s. And I couldn't get the big festivals because I didn't call advanced. So I learned to call A1, and so that I could call it the big dances. That is unfortunate because I noticed the higher level you went, the entertainment went from the face and the smile to the mind. They were still having a good time, but it wasn't there. It didn't do anything for me. You said class entertainment. I agree. That entertainment has to be right from the day one you walk in the door. Hi, join hands, circle left, bang, you're having that experience. There's the singing call. I do my singing calls the first night, very first night walking in the door. They're doing as many singing calls as they're doing just moving around the floor, entertaining, and you've got to wow everything like that. We for too long have focused on, you gave that scenario 1 in 20. I think it's smaller than that. I think it's probably about 1 in 50. But the 1 in 20, our focus has been on the 1 in 20 that want to stay and progress. And the reason the 19 leave is because they're not having a good time. We're not selling a product that they like. And that product that we're selling, unfortunately, is not square dancing. It's not choreography. It's not singing calls. It's an experience. It's us. We are the product. And if we can't sell ourselves, how the hell can we sell an activity that we enjoy if we can't even sell the fact that we enjoy it and let you enjoy it with us? And we lose that when we get focused on choreography. Most everything else that I was going to mention has already been said, but Paul, I loved your presentation. And by the way, I love the fact that you don't bullshit and you don't pull punches.
Thank you, sir. Send me a video of your calling.
I am still trying to get one. I actually asked him to record that so I could send it to you. He recorded himself recording.
Errol, before I let you talk, I want to comment on, I'm taking MC privileges here, but I want to comment on your last comments. You were talking about the local caller, and the road caller and the local caller, and how they have a different job. Years and years ago, Buzz, you might enjoy hearing this, decades and decades ago, I was going to a weekly workshop of red baits in Northampton, and some of my friends said, hey, there's a great dance going on down in Hartford. Let's go down there tonight and skip the Reds workshop. So we went down there, and I was very disappointed because they had a guest caller that night. It was Red Bates. I was leaving Red Bates for Variety. It was a different Red Bates. It was a great dance because he was a road caller at the time. He was putting on a performance for a group that he didn't do every week, as opposed to workshopping something every week. there are two sides to it, which is perfectly what you described, Daryl, and I'll try not to repeat myself. Go for it, Daryl. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this short because I want to hear what Buzz has to say, and I have other duties I'm going to have to get to. Standardization was the original intent of Color Lab, right to begin with, from Bob Osgood. That was what he had in mind. And that's not a bad thing. Standardization said it's going to be done the same everywhere. Now, that didn't say we're going to get 40 different definitions for every movement. Part of the problems with standardization as far as terminology and everything, a lot of that came in after we became so international. Somebody in a different, a non-speaking English country had to have things very, very precise. So some can be forgiven because of that. I still use the term mirror image instead of diagonal opposites a lot of times, which people here understand. Okay, with that said, the standardization is a term that applies to something else. That arc that Chris talked about, 70s, 80s. I can tell you why that started right in there from my opinion. It started because of plus level. We factionalized the activity by cutting that mainstream into two groups, beginners and experienced. And experienced quit taking care of beginners, and beginner, nobody wants to be a beginner, blah, 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 all of that. You've heard it. There's nothing new about it. We don't accept it because we don't want to give anything up that we have. It's not going to change until we change. It's callers. And we have to change, or we're not going to have an activity. I made myself some notes, but I'm not going to carry on because I want to hear what Buzz has to say before I have to leave. Sorry, gang, but thank you for the chance to talk about it.
I'm going to play MC prerogative again, but the standardization of lists anyway was intended for two things. One is so that if dancers traveled across the country, they could enjoy a dance any place they went. And if callers were traveling callers, they knew what the people there could dance. And the example I vividly remember was I was at a caller school in Colorado. They had a guest caller come in from New England, Red Bates. Red Bates was calling club level. Club level in New England included teacup chain. He called teacup chain in Colorado, and the floor broke down because they didn't know how to do it. And Red was a great caller and a great entertainer. And it took him 3 or 4 tips to finally win that group over, because he didn't know that they didn't know teacup chain, and they didn't like him because he called something they couldn't do. The standardization helped with that part. It may have hindered with others, but it helped with that. With that, I'll shut up. Go ahead, Buzz.
Hey,
well, thanks, Don. I appreciate it. I think you can hear me. Just for history, I started calling in 1961. Actually, first class was with a caller by the name of Jack O'Leary with Red Bates. And 2 years later, went to caller school with Earl Johnston and Al Brundage. Both those gentlemen really allowed my career to mushroom. And I traveled throughout New England. I traveled across the country in summertime when I was in college, calling square dances. And I made a lot of money at it, but I spent it because I was a young kid. But a couple of things, and I want to go back and talk about the entertainment value, which in terms where Paul wasn't. And you know, back in those days, it was interesting to me that the job of a caller is synergistic. The caller was to keep people dancing. The music brings in the rhythm and the beat, and the two work together, and the dancers keep dancing. And they applaud, not because you're what you're calling, they're applauding their own performance. And I think we have to recognize that. Sometimes we have egos, but really, if they get through it all and there's no mistakes, They're happy. One of the things that was so important in those days was the music. And the music is a significant part about entertainment. You know, I can remember then we called, the dancers stayed. This is when we were dancing 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. The dancers stayed to the last tip. And then basically when it ended and you did your last number, they applauded because they wanted one more. And I mean, the halls were packed and they stayed to dance. So one of the things that I think that drives the process is the music. And you with a caller, of course, in those days we didn't have them on the mic, but you play with that music and you built and you built and you built your anticipation to what you were going to come to with the Alaman left. And when you did that, the floor went crazy. And so I think that's a significant part about the entertainment. I've gone to callers here in Texas. You can't even hear the damn music. And basically what it is they're doing, they're calling and they're like taking people like they're robots and moving around a chessboard. And then they get to the Alaman left and it's silence. You know, there's not a whole lot of excitement. So the part of entertainment, I think, is basically letting them feel part by grow with the enthusiasm of the music. It's a significant part of, and I think it's somehow been lost. I happen to think about, Paul, you mentioned entertainers in New England, and Donald, probably one of the great entertainers was Franny Heinz. Franny passed away a number of years ago. Dick Ledger, obviously the man with the guitar. Gloria Rios was a great entertainer as well. It was a woman caller, and she had her place. She built the Woodlands. So, and they were good entertainers. And there is the importance of looking the part, but also I think one of the things that is a part of that is the socialization of it. I think the caller needs to get off the stage or get off the platform, wherever it is, and mingle with the crowd and virtually, and then ask them what they would like to dance with. And so I'm thinking about, I called from 61 to 74. I had the opportunity to put the callers program together for the New England Square Dance Convention, 1973 and 74. And we always had this small hall off to the side, which was live music. Dick Davis, actually, and his band played for that. And so I took that and I put it into the main hall, and the floor was packed because now people got to actually feel the flavor of what square dancing is to the live music. And Dick played drums, and I mean, he drove that beat, and the caller could get into it and drive the beat home. That's how important music was. And I don't know what happened. It went off to Providence after I got out of calling. But I got out, I graduated from college, started some of my first companies. Then I was working, got transferred down to Texas. I went back and started calling in 82 to 85 and left. So the last time I called the square dance was in 85. So for you, most of you, sitting here in 22, it seems like an eternity ago that was 85. For me, it's just yesterday. And so coming back into it today, and virtually the thing that what I think is missing, and I don't hear the enthusiasm, is the fun element of what square dancing was all about. That drove the process. Okay, it was the music and the fun. And virtually, those of you that are calling, you can make an awfully complicated program out of basic dancing, out of basic figures. You can stump the floor with basic figures. You can surely break down the floor with mainstream. And then, of course, you go on to plus. I'm not interested in doing A's and C's. That's, by the way, the caller that was in my caller school with Johnston and Al Brundage was Lee Kopman. And Lee basically is the guy that took it. Great caller, great rhythm. One thing I don't see a lot right now in terms of calling is in terms of the smoothness. We were taught then, basically, you alternated hands, you alternated right, you alternated left. The reason I always thought slide through came in because it was uncomfortable with the girls, with the guys doing the right and the girls doing the left, and virtually they got broken down. I don't know. Here's my point, and I want to focus on the energy. The dress is certainly important. I understand that, but it really is the relativity of what you're saying and you're conversing. I used to tell jokes from the stage and so forth. It worked out really well. But what's happened to this activity right now is that we've tended to go, in Houston, it is a reverse flying. I think the average age of a square dancer in Houston right now is in their early 70s, late 60s. And they've forgotten that if you want to virtually grow, you've got to go back and start back with the very elementary levels of where it's all about fun. I think the entertainment becomes a part of that. And then maybe there are clubs that can stay at that level forever. Maybe they're going to be dancers that want to progress. But if we want to save, at least here in Houston, and I think across the rest of the country, is to bring back the very basic steps. SSD programming is great. Just try to do it that way. Try to attract the club to people that are in their late 30s, 30, 40s, you know, that virtually they've got families at home. The only reason I came back to calling square dances is that and it's important to me is that when I was a young kid growing up and virtually, you know, I was married, I had a young family, I had a workday job, but the square dance calling was what actually allowed me to take care of my family. We used to talk about the activity all the time. I don't hear a lot of talk about the activity anymore. And you guys had like Charlie Baldwin and Jim Mayo and callers like that, Earl, I can't think of his Earl Smith, but those days they were all focused on the activity. And that's what NECA came about. I was at the very early stages of Caller Lab. The only thing I like about Caller Lab, I've seen a little bit, is that basically a caller can call a square through in Texas and he's going to get a square through in California, and everybody's going to know what the dancing is. And the important part is to keep them dancing, challenge them. And so I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of conversations with Don. I'm talking with old friends of mine, Kip Garvey in California, and Kevin Bershing in St. Louis, and Jack O'Leary in Iowa. And it's all, what we're doing now, at least I see, it isn't working. And so consequently, if you keep, a CEO, if you develop a business strategy and a tactical way to do it and it doesn't work, you give it up and try something different. And right now what's happening here, it's not working. And so consequently, I give square dancing in Houston maybe 5 years at tops. Either people are going to die off, or they're going to be physically unable to dance. And unless we reverse pattern and go back and start at the basic, you know, when you had Pappy Shaw in Colorado, you had the Brundage brothers in New England, Ed Gilmore. By the way, Les Goucher was a great entertainment too, going back a number of years. That's probably a name maybe a lot of you don't remember. But to me, 85 is yesterday. And I just want to get back to what it was, where it was. And it's the only reason I came back to calling. I don't need the money. I'm willing to invest in things that will help both personally and professionally and monetarily. And so I know I've rambled here. Obviously, you can tell I have passion for what I believe in, and that's what I'm going to try to do with the leadership. I've sent off a communication to our caller association here. Nothing has happened about in terms of building and exhibiting leadership, and that's what square dance callers are. They're leaders. Haven't gotten any response back to that, but I'm not disheartened. And I'm going to keep at it, but that's the only reason I'm here. And Don, I appreciate the opportunity. You gave me a lot of invitations. And Don, you've written a great book, and I do want to see you go back and republish it. I'll be quiet.
So let me sneak in here for a second, please.
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to point out, if you guys go back and you listen to this after Dan posts it, presentation is on entertainment. Yet all of our discussion since I shut up has been 85% about choreography.
Not me.
Do you see we're doing it to ourselves right now? Right now, most of what we're talking about is choreography and history, and we're not talking about entertainment. And this is what the problem is we've got to figure out a way to focus on entertainment. I'm not saying don't get up there and make your comments on whatever your point is. I get it, okay? But until we figure out a way to focus on the entertainment, all of this is for nothing. And Buzz, in particular, were your ears burning about 8 o'clock last night?
No.
Well, they should have been, because we were having a good discussion about you for an extended period of time last night, Buzz. I went out to dinner with Bill Menger. And we talked about you, and we talked about one of your first times coming back into calling in Houston, and Bill asking you, what level do you call? Do you remember what your answer was to Bill?
I don't.
Your answer was, I call club level. Because that's what it was to you. That's what it was to you. It was club level. Okay. And until he was able to establish with you what the different calls were on the different levels, he wasn't able to get the dancers that were going to do a demonstration with you to be able to do what you were calling club level because you had to know what level they dance. So once again, here I go, and I'm talking choreo when I'm trying to say, let's focus on entertainment, folks. Okay, I can guarantee you that while Dawn has mentioned that there have been 3 different presentations on showmanship and things like that over the course of his Zoom sessions, how many Zoom sessions have there been?
90 plus.
Okay, so what's that? What's that? I'm not a mathematician. Chris, what's that number? If we've done 3 presentations out of showmanship,
3%.
3%.
3%.
Okay, so there's your number there. We got the super genius rocket scientist. If he says it's 3%, it's 3%. My point is how many of the presentations have been about choreo? Okay, enough with the choreo. We get it. You spent your time. You're doing your numbers. You're writing your modules. You're doing all that other shit. But what you're not doing is rehearsing a damn singing call.
Paul, the other 97% were not all choreo. There was
you get my point though, Don. You understand
great. I'm just pushing our thing here, but we've had some great history presentations.
Okay. I'm not bashing Call Lab. I'm not bashing this sessions here. I'm saying is they're good at what they do, but it's what they're not doing that we need to address right now.
Chris, I see your hand. 2 hands up, but Brian's had his hand up first.
No, Brian can't talk. No.
So we have no,
Brian. No, he's not allowed to talk.
The order that I'm going to recognize people in is, oh my God, they all have their hands up. Brian, then Chris, then Dan, then Mickey, and then Yolanda. And if you guys could keep it somewhat concise, some of you have been making great points over and over, and say it once or twice, and then let somebody else talk.
Okay, so Dawn, you're exercising your MC rights. I'm exercising my presenter rights. No, Brian, do Yolanda first.
Again, MC rights. Buzz wasn't calling club level. We should call it dancer level. Never mind. Go ahead. Yolanda, you're on, but don't repeat yourself too often.
Nope, won't do that. So one of the things I've been trying to do and managing in some of the groups I'm in is getting people to have some form of music that they can go on to and that we can actually start practicing singing calls.
There you go.
Because I want both. I want the choreo and the singing.
I want my dessert. Give me my dessert.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, I like the dessert part. I've always called it the frosting on the cake. But even more fundamental that I like the dessert rather than just the frosting.
Yes. But I want to have the mentorship of different callers giving me feedback. And I also want to have the other new callers and be able to hear them, and that we can give some feedback to each other so that the new callers also socialize. And because I'm hearing you guys, and you've been together 40 years or more, and you guys have socialized together, but I want it to be about not just choreography, but the singing as well. So that's my point. I'm sticking to
That's much better point than Brian's going to make, I'm sure. That's much better point than Brian's going to make.
Again, I'm going to jump in. Caller Lab has been trying for the last 2 or 3 years to recognize the emphasis should be on sociability. I've recognized for the last month or so that part of this group is sociability. We like to get it together and talk about our favorite topic. And that's good, and that keeps us entertained too. But sociability is a big part of it. And I had another comment about something Yolanda was, that Yolanda, as far as getting together and even critiquing each other, many sessions ago, we had, oh God, what's his name? Dan, you can help me on Rich's name. Rich Reel has had a group of callers get together on a regular basis in the San Francisco Bay Area, where they would all each take turn calling and critiquing itself and doing social things. And we had him on here give a talk on how to organize a group like that in your local area. And that might be something worthwhile to go back and look at for things like that. Yolanda, thank you for keeping it short, and take your hand down now.
Actually, I want to have one more comment. Here's the
Whoops.
I want it in Zoom so that it can become international for the new callers.
I'm loving that Zoom has made that possible in a lot of cases. So, Paul, can I let Brian talk now?
If you have to, I'll just leave the room.
Okay, bye.
Okay, guys. I totally agree with Paul. Entertainment is something that we don't talk enough about. I had a nice discussion years ago with Bronk Wise, who many of you have seen Bronk, and you know that he's one of our more entertaining callers. And his opinion on it was rather astute, being that he's also a challenge caller. He came out and told me that essentially how you entertain dancers at different programs is different. And so if you're primarily focusing on mainstream and plus, you need to focus on your singing. You need to focus on making sure that everyone in the room is having fun. You need, the less focus has to be on the choreography. And then as you move higher in the programs, that focus changes, and there's less focus on the singing and the jokes and what have you, and there's more focus put on the choreography, and that's where it should be, is up in the advanced and challenge levels. At the mainstream and plus levels, it really needs to be entertainment should be number one, and that's how he focused it. And if you ever watch him call at a mainstream dance or a plus dance, he's amazingly entertaining. And I really enjoy watching him work. And whenever I watch him work at advanced or challenge, I find he's a completely different caller, but he's entertaining those dancers on the floor. And those dancers who are on the floor love what he's doing to them. And so he's able to gauge what he's doing based on the audience. And for me, myself, coming from a teen square dance competition background, I won't get up and do a singing call unless I've practiced it. It has to be well practiced. I have to know those words, the lyrics to the song inside out, upside down, and backwards. I can't get up there and do it unless I know them. Otherwise, it's embarrassing. Because when we were taught to do singing calls, we were taught to do them in order to compete with them, and we were being judged by people, and so we had to do them in such a way that they were always entertaining. And so that's, to me, entertainment is just part and parcel of what we have to do. And as far as the choreography piece goes, when I grew up, as a teen, we had to know the choreography, and so that was different. But we are such a small, insignificant part of the square dance community. The rest of the world does this recreationally, whereas where I come from, we danced. It was basically the Olympics of square dancing. So it's a completely different world. So my experience is different than that of most everybody else. But other than that, I completely agree with Paul. The entertainment needs to be the primary focus for the entry levels of square dancing.
And what I hate to agree with Brian, because I just hate that's a principle thing. But the thing is what Brian's saying right now about rehearsing the singing call and going back to Dawn's analogy of the icing on the cake. Well, thinking of this, if you want to think of the cake as the meat and potatoes of the activity, meat and potatoes cake, I guess. But what you're now talking about is you have the icing on the cake, but it's just put on sloppily. It's just, it's a sloppy icing on a cake. You look at an ugly cake that somebody didn't know how to decorate that cake with a nice icing. It's like, that's what you're doing with the singing call if you're not rehearsing it and getting it exactly ready to performance ready. Okay, you want to look at icing a cake like it's been coming off of Cake Masters on Food TV. You want to see a beautifully iced cake, or you want to sing a beautifully presented and beautifully executed singing call. And again, doesn't have to be Pavarotti. Okay, I can sing a song better than most of the callers out there, but I've never been asked to record on anybody else's label ever once. Okay. The only way I ever got on a recording was to start my own damn company. Okay, but the thing is you can get out there. And again, even the guys who can't sing can sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Even the guys who can't sing can sing, you know, humor songs, but do it and do it well. And make that icing on the cake shine. Shutting up now.
We have hands up in the following order: Chris, Mickey, Stephen, and Clark. Not Brian.
All right, I'll try not to ramble. You can hear me,
Good
right?
luck.
Yeah. All right. So I actually, I'm going to read off some little notes I made to myself so I don't ramble too much. Okay. So the first thing that maybe we don't teach this to our new callers. Maybe that's part of the problem or something. But anytime I go to any dance, anytime I'm going to call a dance, I always have the same thing in my head. Entertainment is my job. That's my job tonight. I want to get booked again. I want them to book me back. I want them to think they had a good time, and I'm going to entertain them in the way that they would probably be preferred, you know, to be entertained. If I'm going to go call, you know, to some C3 group or something, we're going to revert the loop and tag chain through a scatter cross reactive with diamond, right? But but I do lots of beginner stuff. I called a first night teach just this Tuesday, and I love doing those. And to me, I'm really fundamentally not doing something different when I go there versus when I go. I mean, I'm using totally different choreography. And the amount of it that I use, I mean, we talk about the choreography because that's, you know, the fundamental part of the activity that makes it different than going round dancing or, you know, some other thing. But but you got to give them the show that they, you know, that they're going to like. And so all this, Paul was saying, we talk about choreography. Well, that's because we're talking about the priority and the mispriority in the usage and the way that the activity is maybe evolved to now, and on the priority of Caller Lab activities. Right now, we're doing all these triennial review stuff, and you know that's something we had to do because we scheduled it. But what's missing is everything else we're talking about here today, and the structure of how we should be doing things, because it's about the entertainment. And so I just had a couple of little notes here. First of all, I'm not sure I agree with the thing that callers today want to get into it because of choreography. There are certainly a bunch that do. All the engineer nerds type people, that's the first thing that happens when they go square dancing is they go, oh, this is an engineering problem, maybe. So there are those guys, but there are quite a few people, and historically most callers have wanted to go into it because they're singers. Well,
very few.
I don't know. Almost everybody I ever talk to, they're like, including recent people, they're like, oh, I want to sing, but I have to learn this choreography stuff too to get it to go. Now, generally, well, and then the other thing is generally all those people that want to do that are people who actually can't sing worth shit, and they're frustrated singers and they think this is an outlet for them potentially. So there's a lot of that. I don't know what you can do about that. But to get to the word showmanship, which is my last point here, one question I always wonder is, can you teach showmanship? Right? We got to get new callers. We got to get showmanship emphasized and whatever. I'm not 100% sure it's something you can teach, because I mean, if you teach people to get up and tell jokes or do these other things, they're just stilted, fake people. And different people will put on different shows. Some people are going to dress up. Some people are going to tell certain kinds of jokes. Some people are going to do other things. I think it's really just about the caller's personality coming through with, hopefully some common sense. Well, anytime you appeal to common sense, you're kind of losing. But common sense about how to relate to people, how to show them a good time, thinking about them and whatever. I don't consider myself some kind of great entertainer, but I get really good feedback, especially on beginner type nights and stuff where people don't know me already. And like I said, I just had Tuesday, and it's a rerun of every time I do it. I go in there, I do my thing, I get them moving around, we have a good time, and the things in my personality that I always hope come through are, I mean, I tell kind of little jokes. They're not, knock jokes or something, but I'll make little remarks here and there. And it's all about just trying to make the group feel like we're all in this together. We're having a party. This is fun, and relating to them in that way. And I always, at the end of the night, I always have people every single time. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm just saying I have people come up every time reliably, and they're like, "Oh, that was so much fun. We had a great time. You're such a good teacher." Blah 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 blah. And I don't get up there and tell knock jokes or wear Elvis outfits or anything. But I just let that come through, and that's the way I do showmanship. And now there are other things that go with that. Yes, you got to practice. You got to have some kind of program. You got to practice, a tremendous amount. You have good singers. I'm not a big singer at all, but I can fake my way through a few of them, basically, like Paul was talking about. Take me up to the ball game or whatever. And so I'm not sure exactly how you can teach that, but anyway, the job is nothing more than entertainment. If you didn't entertain them, you're not coming back. That's it.
Chris, one way you can teach showmanship entertainment is to bring it up from the second to the last priority on the Caller Lab list, right after rounds, contra, and what are the other crap.
Yeah, I don't know how much exactly that. You have, I totally agree with your point there, and it's a fun way to illustrate it. I'm not totally sure that the reason it's on there last is because Caller Lab doesn't think it's important.
That's absolutely why it's last. Those lists, you have the absolute essential topics, the important topics, and the other topics.
Well, it could be that they think that you can't go to a school and have somebody tell you how to be entertaining.
Well, maybe they need to figure out a way to try, because they're not trying.
What's another school where people go to learn how to be an entertainer?
How about things like Toastmasters, where you can actually get up there and learn how to present on a stage?
There are improv and acting classes.
There you go. There are vocal classes. There are many things like that. There are opportunities there, but you have other people to ask questions, so I'll shut up now.
Dan, your hand has been in and out of the queue. If you want to stay in the queue, leave your hand up. Mickey, you've been waiting patiently for a while. Or is it impatient?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you even though it's through your car system.
Okay, cool. Yeah, first of all, I think there's a great point Paul is bringing up with this topic. It's very important. I think Daryl, Buzz, and Brian really nailed it. And I also like what Chris said at the end, that entertaining you probably cannot learn. Maybe to a certain extent, yes. But on the other hand, let's put it that way. I think the listing from Call Lab is not a ranking. Okay, we've got in there. And there is singing calls is way ahead. It's way up higher. And I think to entertain, let's put it that way, that is show that is art. Okay, and before the art, you always must master the craft. which in our case means that we know how to move the dancers, which is choreo definitely, and we got to teach that. And it is singing, the second part, which we definitely have to practice. And putting all that together in some kind of combination, that becomes a square dance caller. And then we're talking about the entertaining. Some can call standing on their head, others would like an Elvis costume. I think the most important thing is to be you. And I think to figure that out is probably a lifetime sensation for everyone or for most of us. But once you found it, then, you know, don't change your winning team. And what I don't like is to put things in general, yeah, to pick on kind of like we're doing too much choreo on Cote Lab or with the color schools. I think it is important what they're doing there, and there's a lot of people sacrifice their free time and energy and their brain work and dedication into standardization or whatever to have some bonus input into the activity. And no entertainer or caller or whatever could move around if we were not standardized all over the world. I think this is most important that we have lists. And a lot of people put a lot of work in that, so we should either pay credit for that or get involved and bring in our ideas in the committees and Cote Lab or whatever, but not just, you know, kind of point with the finger at it and say, this is not what you're doing, yeah? Even though I admit that we need a lot of entertainment and singing, and but the other parts are as important as they are, okay? And my question to Paul is, have you ever been to Europe? Because we have great entertainers and singers as well over here. And I think they are also in the committees, and I'm in a couple of committees in Color Lab. There are great entertainers and singers and colors in there as well. So it is not just the technical high-tech shows or whatever, and those who are ruining the activity, but those are really people that care, okay? And even though we have to bring up numbers, and I think that goes for the entry level, we also have to take care about the levels that we do have and satisfy them. And we have to distinguish between the people we need to bring into the activity and the others who would like to wander around in the activity in the upper levels, whatever. I think every level has its right. And as I think was Brian pointed out with Bronk, and every level needs to be treated different. And there are ways to please everyone in the crowd. And
no, that's the problem right there.
One more point. Also do some golf playing, and I've been out with Coach a time, and we were talking about clubs, and he said, you know what, Mickey, a good golfer can play with any club. And putting that to square dance, I think a good caller can call to any group. Okay, it takes dedication, work, preparation, and he needs to know his stuff, which includes everything: choreo, singing, the correct way of appearing to people, and all those little elements together build the personality and will entertain the people the one way or the other. And if it just would be for calling or entertaining, then we probably would be just not be square dance callers, but maybe go into a circus or be singers on a stage. And I mean, there are all different varieties in entertainment. Still, we have bands out there that make it for a living, and the lead singer can carry a tune, or they're off pitch always somehow, but they make a lot of noise or music, as you would call it. And there are a lot of people out there, they like it. So this is their part of their activity where they're in it. And I think that we have to see that we are different in all aspects. And putting that all together and communicating and trying to find the best for the activity and to gain numbers again, I think this is the real test, and not jumping at each other, maybe. Yeah, so far from my.
Okay, well, I'm not going to jump at you, but I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. Okay, when you talk about trying to have taken care of everybody at every level in every way, we can't afford to do that anymore. We need to forget.
It's just one question in between.
What does
it harm if I do a dancer, a good dance? What does it add to getting new dancers in? It's a totally different thing. And I think we have to distinguish between those different levels and demands within our activity.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't want to snipe back at you, but I would like to respectfully disagree if you'll give me the opportunity to.
Sure.
Okay. My feelings are, and again, this is all my feelings here, okay? And we know I'm an asshole, so that's not a problem, okay? We've established that much, okay? But here's the thing. In my opinion, right now, the state of the activity as it is, 5% of what we were 40 years ago in 1982, we have got to set a singular focus on recruiting and getting new dancers into the activity. We need to let the people that are in the activity at the higher levels go ahead and do their thing. I'm not saying stop it, but it cannot be the priority. We have got to take those dancers who have been in the activity for years and say, hey, folks, it's time to stop thinking of yourselves and thinking on the good of the overall activity. And the good of the overall activity right now is reestablishing the base. And that's how
I'm with you, and that should be their own interest, because where do they get their dancers from? Yeah, so exactly. I'm not fighting against that.
Okay, and your question to me before was, have I ever called in Europe? I was invited to call in Europe once. I was invited to call in Germany, and I thought it would be wonderful. I thought it'd be a great time, and I said, yes, I'd like to do that. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call, and the person said, well, these are the things that we want you to do at the dance. These are the things that we expect of you. We expect a certain degree of challenge. We expect a certain degree of intricate choreography. We expect this, we expect that. And I said, then don't expect me, because that's not the dance I call. I am an entertainer. My choreography sucks, okay? I have said from day one, I am not a good caller. I am a good entertainer. I am a good showman. If you want to hire Paul Cote, the entertainer and showman, I would love to come and call for you in Germany. But if you want me to be something that I'm not interested.
Okay, within Germany, we got over 500 clubs. In Europe, I think we're all together about 1,000 clubs at least. This was one club which contacted you. And I guess not every club is that way on one side. On the other side, this is nothing you should judge on the European people.
I'm not judging. I haven't gotten any other invitations.
Yeah, I think we should not try to divide the States or Japan. I've been all over the world, okay? I think we should try to get everyone together and have programs where you don't matter where you go or where you call, where you can work with the people. I think this is the big benefit of our activity and of standardization of the programs. And I think we should rather combine than divide.
I'm not disagreeing with that in the slightest.
Okay.
Not in the slightest.
Yeah.
The standardization of the programs is fantastic. But what I'm saying is, this is who I am. If you want to hire me for who I am, I'd love to call for you. If you don't want to hire me, that's fine. Don't hire me, but don't try and turn me into something I'm not.
We're not all high-tech shows, like you've pointed out or whatever. We do have a similar activity as in the States, okay?
And what's working in the States isn't working in the States right now. So, I mean, come on, there's not a lot to boast about. All right, I'm going to shut up. There's other people with hands up. I'm going to shut up.
Right. Stephen, what have you got to tell us?
Yeah, as a new caller, I call myself a new caller. I've dabbled with it for 40 years, but it's compressed into 1 year. But I have people all the time telling me, you should be a caller, and I got callers. Why aren't you continuing to be a caller and stuff? And my wife points out I need voice lessons. And but I've had other people say, hey, you sing great. I said, no, not really. But Brian mentioned Bronk Weiss. I've danced to him maybe 2 times. And I remember the first time because he was such an entertainer. And I remember him doing his Grand Ole Opry medley thing that he did. It was phenomenal. And it's the first time I've ever seen half the squares break down. They didn't break down because they broke down. They broke down to stop to watch him because he was that entertaining that they didn't want to miss his watching him because they were so busy dancing. And it was funny because my club, my square kept dancing. It's like we wanted to stop, but we wanted to dance. So it was so fun to watch him. But entertaining is the key. I mean, that's what got me to stay in square dancing was all the different entertaining and stuff. And that's what we need more of.
Sounds good. Nikki, take your hand down. You're in the queue and you had your piece. Clark, it's your turn. Oh, Nikki, you're driving. You should keep your hands on the wheel, I guess. Clark, what's up?
So several comments or rebuttals. The first is with respect to certain committees like the definitions committee spending a lot of time and effort doing things. Committee work is not a zero-sum game, meaning the extra work done by the definitions committee does not detract from the showmanship committee. People can join any committee and volunteer their time wherever they want. Just like dancers can come into whichever dance they want to go to each night. So just because one committee works pretty hard and produces a lot of output doesn't mean that Color Lab is focusing too much on that. The lists and definitions existed before Color Lab. For example, Sets in Order put out lists, the basic 50 and the extended 75, and put out booklets of definitions associated with those. When Color Lab started, it kind of took that work over, but we had the definitions and the booklets even before, and that was when Color Lab was in a growth period. So I don't think we can necessarily say those are what caused the problem in square dancing. With respect to color schools, I've done a lot of reading and studying on teaching and learning. And really, the only 2 things I know are the 2 things I have self-taught, which is calling and computers. And generally, the stuff that people know well and learn well and do well are the things that are self-taught. If you think you're going to learn something by going to a class and listening, that doesn't really hack it. And that means our current public schools don't work very well, et cetera. So the callers who I know and respect, people like Vic Cedar, were entirely self-taught. It doesn't mean that you can't have mentors and you can't have people critique and you can't go and learn and tune a certain area of your performance. But generally, you've got to do the work yourself, and you've got to do it because that's what you're interested in doing, and that's what floats your boat, and no one can keep you away from that microphone or keep you from getting a square of dancers and calling to them or teaching them. So yes, we have caller schools. Yes, they have to do curriculum that is, approved by Color Lab if you want to get a scholarship to it. And maybe that isn't the best, and maybe it's drinking from a fire hose. And yes, we have people who come back year after year. And yes, most of them are never going to be good callers, but they're doing a different activity. they're doing the going to color school and having a social fun at color school activity, not the, oh, I need to call to dancers, I need to get a microphone, I need to get a square, I need to go out and call to them every week, etc. activity. That's what gets better callers. Moving on to bigger points, the thing we seem to be talking about is square dancing and attendance has gone down, and yes, it has, and maybe its peak was in the 80s, and maybe its peak was 40,000 at the national convention, but that was kind of an artificially high number. So I wouldn't say that square dancing is 5% of what it was, but it's certainly probably no more than 20% of what it was at its heyday. So what's happening? Why is that happening? Is that because we aren't entertainers anymore? Or is that because of the new definitions and the emphasis on choreography? And I think the answer is no. And we can look at a parallel activity and wonder how it's doing. And that would be the modern contra dance activity. And the modern contra dance activity has a lot of pluses that we in square dancing don't have. For example, you don't need to take lessons. It has live music, which is inherently more entertaining than recorded music. And it has a younger population. And it has a wider spread population from teens all the way up to, you know, old geezers. So contra dancing has also not been growing. So even if we were to imitate everything contra dancing is doing, we still wouldn't necessarily be growing. So what gives? And that's my final point. And I'm going to go back to the book that I've mentioned before in this series, which is Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. And he basically points out how from the 60s, how society has changed. And society's changed in several ways, which has caused a decrease in people joining things, be it going to church, joining Boy Scouts, joining clubs like Rotary clubs or whatever, and just doing social activities. And some of the influence that caused that to happen, which is why square dancing is different in the 60s and 70s than it is today, would include 2 people working in each family, number 1, people driving further, commuting longer to get to their jobs, number 2, the advent of other forms of entertainment, including television and computers. And I think he might have had a 4th thing that might have just been generational differences. How is it different generations like to spend their free time, and do they join groups or not? So I think those are overriding things that have caused our activity to both boom and then later bust. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, not specifically with Clark, but with several of the people that are responding, I'm hearing a little bit of animosity. Okay, and I'm prepared for animosity. That's not a problem. Okay, we can agree to disagree, or we can disagree and you can not agree. You know, not. That's fine. I don't care. I'm here to present my point of view, and I don't intend to change. And if I come and I attend another session, I will listen to that person's point of view and go from there. Specifically with what Clark's saying right now, and the correlation to bowling or whichever else, we can't change the fact that people now can sit in the computer or sit and watch TV and 100 different channels and 17 different streaming services, and we can't change those kind of things at all. So let's just give up. Let's just quit. Fuck it. You don't even have to delete that, Dan. Okay, fuck it. Why are we even bothering being here? Okay. My point is not that defining things is bad. My point is the committees that Clark has been involved with have been working their asses off for years on the portion of the program that they work on, the definitions of the calls. My point is that the other parts are not working. We're not focusing on entertainment, and that continues in this discussion right now. We are not focusing on entertainment. We're focusing on, well, what we did is with definitions is a good thing. Well, with standardization is a good thing. All of those things are good things, but that's not the point of this discussion. The point of this discussion is we need to figure out a way to be better entertainers. And if it's all for naught, fuck it. Let's just shut down. Now I scared everybody.
Dan?
All right, now I'm ready to go. So yeah, I think that Paul's last point is exactly on. We've talked about, we spent the last hour or so, longer than that, talking about how what we're doing isn't working, but we haven't talked about what we can do. One of the things I question is the value of the singing call. If I go to a traditional dance, caller's not singing in any of those. They're calling, but they're not singing. So I think that maybe our focus on the singing call as kind of the end of things is, there's a different format there. The other is I totally share your frustrations with caller schools. I've been to 3 now, I guess. And yes, something other than the traditional caller lab curriculum is absolutely a necessity. And third, among my list, before pre-COVID, my next caller school was going to be the Dare to Be Square West caller school. And you'll notice that has nothing to do with modern Western. I think that's kind of the direction I'm looking at going at. And then, yeah, I'm totally looking around for what can help me be a better entertainer. Is that improv classes? Is that more voice lessons? All of those things, because I do believe that can be taught. And I have no idea where to go for more of that because I've got limited time. Anyway, that's mine.
Very quickly, Buzz, do you have a pen handy?
Yeah, 1 second.
I don't know how to respond to you on the text thing. You sent a direct message to me. You asked my phone number.
Yes.
It's 713-299-1489. As soon as I hang up here, I'm going to head into the airport. I'll be flying all day. And I have a photo session and a recording session on Sunday and Monday. So don't even try me till Tuesday.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, sorry. Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Somebody mentioned that we seem to be going in circles, and that seems to be the case. But Chris, you want to close the circle out?
You're muted, Chris.
Don't tell him that.
Talking about the singing calls and about the singing call school. I know that some people have that going now. I'm not so, and they pay a huge amount of money and they get to make a record. And I don't know, the whole thing to me looks mainly like a vanity press scam. Pay us a huge amount of money.
That's exactly what Square Dance Recording is. It's all vanity.
Oh yeah,
no,
yeah.
You remember the name of my former label,
Ego
right. Recordings. Okay, right, there's a reason it was called Ego.
Right. Well, in this case, I'm just talking specifically about the school where they go to, which is really just paying, as far as I can tell, a huge amount of money to put to make a Square Dance record with your name on it, so you can come home and say, "Look, I'm a recording artist now,"
yes,
which
exactly.
Is all kind of a bad joke. But
let me tell you something on that, Chris, real quickly. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going into the recording studio on Monday. I'm going into Hilltop Recording, which is where all of the best live square dance music has been made for 40 years. Okay, I have 8 professional, top of the line Nashville pickers. Okay, that day is going to cost me, that one day is going to cost me almost $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason that school is so expensive, because they use the same pickers that I'm using.
Oh,
and
I know.
that's why that's what they're paying for. And yes, you are absolutely correct. It's a vanity project. Okay. But if that vanity product also gave them the opportunity to become better showmen, become better singers, become better performers, then it's a vanity project worth having done.
Well, I would agree with you.
I just want to give you real numbers. Like the numbers that I quoted for the National Convention, Clark suggested that they were inflated. I can't verify if they're inflated or not. I went back through the history of the National Convention and I picked a year, 40 years from today or this year. Okay. The number that was listed for the National Convention was 40,000 in 1982. Okay. The number at the National Convention this year was under 2,000. That's a 95% loss. Now, if he's going to say that it's only been an 80% loss and we still have 20% of the activity, show me the numbers. I've given you my source. Show me the numbers.
Yeah, I'm not super focused on exactly what the number is. I think everybody can agree that square dancing has been on the decline since let's say the 90s, and that today it's a much smaller activity. And I think that and Clark's point about the society changing is the key thing. It's that I mean, we've changed what we've done over the years compared to the 60s to say the 80s, and even beyond. Yes, we have changed what we do, but the bigger change is in society. Now, what we need to do, and to just sort of bring back to close the circle here, my point is that Caller Lab needs to spend more effort. And like Clark says, this does not take away from the definitions work, which I think is
not
essential.
at all.
And all of that stuff, but we need to really get with it on focusing on restructuring, I believe, the programs to better match the society that we have today. I mean, it's not that everything we did was wrong or something, but things have changed, and we have not changed with it. Well, what we've done is just refine the same old thing, and the same old thing is not the right thing. I think a major rethinking of, leave the existing programs the way they are, because I don't think that's where you want to start. I think you need to kind of start over and step back a bit and say, maybe we need, and to some extent, that's what the SSD program is all about, and that's what that effort is. I mean, SSD is focused on choreography, you might say, because it's got lists and example choreography and all that junk, but really the thrust of the thing needs to be entertainment, and that means getting people in, giving them something that is approachable, that matches with the time constraints and the travel constraints and the way that they run their lives now. And I think that reviewing, thinking about the way that people used to learn more choreography, people always like to learn more junk. And don't tell me people don't like to take classes. I just watched a TV commercial not 24 hours ago where it's probably an app or something, but it's a service for finding fun things that you might like to do. And they have all these young people there, and they're spouting off things that they want to do if they could only figure out where the activity was in their area. And the second thing is that some girl goes, I want to take a dance class. So, I mean, you don't tell me people don't want to take a dance class. But what they expect out of that dance class and how long it's going to be and where they're going to be able to dance afterwards. Notice that she didn't say, I want to go dancing. I want to take a dance class. But the whole structure of the activity, and that relates to programs. That's what we need to rethink, how to adapt that, how to make that entertaining. Now, when you get down to it and you're the caller and you're going in there, what do you need to focus on? I agree with Mickey. You need to be able to pull it all off. Where we train new callers and what we expect out of them and what we expect out of beginners in the lower levels of the activity. That is stuff to really think hard about, and you know, it needs to be fun, right? That's it. It needs to be entertaining, and a lot goes into that. Anyway, that's my thought, is that we need to focus more on the structure of what we're doing here. And I mainly I'm agreeing with you. You know, we need to be emphasizing things that are not choreographic variety at that level.
And I explained to most of you folks that were here last 2 weeks ago my reasons. I told you why it's so important to me. Okay, how I've dedicated my life to this. Many people have shown their own form of dedication. What the hell are you doing, Clark? You're making funny faces. Anyway, I owe this activity. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to do something. Okay. So if you don't agree with what I'm saying, I don't care. Do something. Do something to change it. Or Buzz, you just bought yourself a new MA220. I'll give you $1,100 back for it right now. Pack it up and I'll buy it back for you. Fuck it. There's no point in trying. Okay, give it up. Why come back to the activity after you went and you raised a family and you earned a living? Why come back? If we're going to give up on it because that's what they're saying that society has changed for bowling, just give it up. Okay? Let it die. Why are we wasting our time here for 2.5 hours today?
I think I want to summarize that we all agree that we have to entertain the troops. We all agree that this is something we love and therefore want others to love with us. That we're having a tough time with the majority, as Clark said, because society is changing. I do want to point out, as far as statistics, the National Convention may be indicative, but not necessarily everything. I consider myself somebody that's had a lot to do with the activity and in the activity and owe a lot to the activity. And I've only been to 3 nationals and haven't had fun at either. It's not my thing. So that's not a total list of what's important.
It was a source. It was just a source that I could quote.
I understand. We've been dragging this on and going on in circles for quite a bit. We've got a lot to think about. I think nobody's questioning the fact that we've got to entertain people. The questions are how, and again, as Paul said last time, we got to get them in the door. People biologically haven't changed over the years that much, so that if we had fun doing this then, we probably are still going to have fun doing it now, but there is more and different competition.
Dawn, if you'll have me back, entertainment part 2, the specifics of how we entertain, or how we can entertain, if you have me back.
Well, after Paul leaves, we'll take a vote to see whether we're going to have him. No, that's anyway. Thanks again, Paul, for keeping people interested and talking. And if anybody listens to the tape this far, feedback's always welcome. It's kind of interesting. I guess that I'm saturated. I'm about to bow out, and I don't know if Dan's going.
And I've got a plane to catch.
Oh. Do that.
I will.
Have a good, safe trip back. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you all. Guys. Appreciate you all.
And sorry, Brian, I just see your hands up, but
well, it's just a quick point. We're basically we started this SSD program, and it's supposed to be the savior of our program, being that it's an easier program to teach, and it'll get a quicker turnaround for beginner classes that are out there. And it's a wonderful idea. However, the focus has been on the list. The focus has been on teaching. And really what Paul's been trying to drive home here is that it's useless unless those people who are doing the teaching and doing the program are entertaining as hell. They need to get up there, they need to entertain those dancers in order to retain them, to keep them dancing, which is really what he's trying to focus here on. You know, it doesn't matter whether we're teaching them basics or mainstream or plus, we need to entertain those dancers to keep them coming back. And if entertaining means you know, walking around and chatting with everybody, that's great. That's part of your entertaining package. But one of the things that we don't do at Collar Lab is we might have one session on showmanship. Well, we've got 300 callers at Collar Lab. There should be 300 sessions of showmanship, and we should see what each of these callers do, because not everything that one caller does is going to hit home with me. I might see some other caller and say, oh, well, yeah, well, what he's talking about, I can't do that stuff. But if I see another caller and he's doing a presentation and the stuff that he's doing, so, oh, I can do stuff that he's doing, and that's within my what I can do, then it basically helps with your entertainment or your ability to entertain dancers. And unfortunately, we don't have enough sessions, and it's the amount of sessions that really needs to grow.
We don't have enough honesty with each other either.
Right. So we get a better idea of how to entertain dancers.
Just like
you'll get honesty from me, I guarantee you.
Oh, I know that.
Just like the National Convention, Collar Lab isn't for everybody to come and join. Hopefully others will. I've always loved going there and meeting people. But good things to think about, guys. And each person has their own way to entertain and be an entertainer. It doesn't necessarily take an Elvis costume to make it happen, or telling jokes. Sometimes just a good smile on your face will help a lot. We will, as I was trying to say before, I'm going to bow out, guys.
Me too.
Happy flight, Paul, and we will see you.
Take care, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye, y'all.